business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Inspiration, motivation takes. Listen to the pod.
Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. Every episode is an invitation, a reminder that business and life isn't just about profit, it's about purpose. It's about showing up with a servant's heart in every deal, every decision, every day to make a powerful impact on others. My guest today, boys, he's going to light you up. He's going to motivate you, and he's going to challenge you. But the most important thing, those are important, is you're going to walk away with tools and resources to inspire action, both in your life and the lives of others. So before we dive in, here's your homework today. How are you going to serve yourself first? How are you going to serve others today? Keyword is today. Doesn't have to be a big impact. Even a small act of kindness or courage can change the game. Just saying somebody's name at the clerk at the grocery store or your waitress. Tabitha, I don't know why I picked that name. Tabitha, thank you for a great meal. It changes people's lives. Trust me, my guests will tell you all about that, and I've seen it firsthand myself. So let's lean in. Let's take notes. Got my pen ready. Yeah, the host takes notes as well because I like to learn. And let's discover how servant leadership in business can create ripple effects that last far beyond that bottom line. And hey, let's do a quick shout out to my sponsor, Epic Impact, the only universal emotional resonant messaging framework that works anywhere for any audience. This 4-step process transformed how I pitch, how I social media post, and how I podcast. By storytelling, I can engage, I can persuade, I can inspire, and I can close that story with clarity. I use it daily and it works. So grab your free trial at epicimpact.ai with the promo code Steve. Let's start bringing action today. Quick shout out to my guest and you audience. We hit top 20 in small business marketing in podcast. Thanks to you for sharing this, but more importantly, thanks to you from the bottom of my heart for making that impact. That was the whole goal with this podcast when we started. So thanks again. Let's keep inspiring and impacting people daily. With that being said, Kevin, welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart.
Well, thanks, Steve. I'm honored to be here.
You got me so excited. I almost stuttered there. High value relationships. What is that?
High value relationships. Well, so I have been an entrepreneur for 30 years. And for most of that 30 years, I have believed that as entrepreneurs, our most valuable asset is relationships. And today, I get to serve entrepreneurs who are making such a huge impact through their businesses, who have such big hearts, who they too have servants' hearts and just want to be able to use their business to make their biggest impact. And those are what I call high value relationships.
Love it. Well, we're both been called super connectors, different words for the same thing. Can anybody be a connector?
Anybody can be a connector. It's like, do they want to? And you know, is that something that they want to place their focus on? What I can tell you is there could be thousands of people doing what I do, and it wouldn't be enough. I do know that.
Amen to that. I couldn't have said that any better, because that's why we're all over this world today in this business, is we're not trying to bring high value to people. So people listening going, God, I love what you do, Steve. Kevin, I love what you do. What's my first step to be a connector?
Well, the first step, I mean, obviously we ourselves need to believe that relationships are important, that relationships are valuable. And when we come from that place, you know, I am like every day, I am having conversations with entrepreneurs who are doing just such great things and stuff. And the way I got started in this was really quite simple. It was just by just being genuinely appreciative of other people. That's how I always get conversations going and stuff. Because here's the deal, Steve, you know, no matter who somebody is, no matter how big of a business they might run, no matter how successful things might seem from the outside looking in, there is not a person on the face of this earth that gets too much appreciation. And when we just make it a point to be, like you were talking about in the opening comments, just be genuinely appreciative of other people. And in this day and age, it's so easy. I mean, we've got all kinds of social media. We've got, we can interact with almost anybody, and it doesn't matter who they are. And when we see that somebody puts something out that resonates with us, maybe they do a podcast interview, maybe they put out an article, maybe they put out a video short or whatever that is. And if that resonates with us, you know what, man, send them a message and let them know. Let them know, you know what, man, I really appreciate you sharing this, and here's why. And just leave it at that. And I will tell you what, when we show up with just this, from this place of just appreciation and being intentionally appreciative towards others people's, that will open so many doors, because like I said, nobody gets too much appreciation. And I don't want to, I want to caution people, don't look at this as a strategy or a tactic or anything like that. Just let it be who you are. And you mentioned your waitress. I was just in Toronto this last week, and while I was there, five of my friends and I went out to a brunch meal and stuff. And our waitress, her name was Nikki. She was so awesome. I mean, went over and beyond to deliver. A couple people at the table had special requests, and she absolutely made that happen and stuff. And when we were done, we in fact, I don't want to go in detail, but we found a really cool way to express our appreciation for Nikki. And I will tell you, when we did that, she was floored for one, but she was also like, she goes, "You have no idea how much I really needed that today." And I'll tell you, that's the kind of response that comes when we don't know, no agenda, just being genuinely appreciative of other people.
That phrase, "we don't know what people's shoes are walking in today," that
Yeah.
story nails that. And it's funny, Kevin, we connected right away when we first met. I've never heard anybody go, "Don't give me compliments. Don't say good things to me. You're an a-hole, Steve. You're an a-hole, Kevin, because you just gave me positivity."
Yeah.
Not once. And audience, think about that. Have you ever told somebody something good and they said, "Don't ever say that to me again"? Never.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, ROI. We're in that world. What's the benefit? What's the ROI? You've done over 16 million in generating income, revenue, doing this and following other techniques.
Yeah.
So it's successful then for you.
Yeah. It is. And not only successful financially, just incredibly rewarding, And I mean, not a couple of weeks ago, I got connected with this guy Mike, and him and his team have built this software that does some pretty powerful stuff. And through getting to know him and finding out how passionate he is about what they've got going, finding out some of the results that they have helped people get with this and stuff. It turns out that I know a couple people that it would make sense for me to connect him with. And so one of them I reached out to, and one of them was a person who's running a business that's doing about 750 million, and they have locations across this country. And I actually just heard back from them this morning saying, "Man, Kev, I would love to be introduced to Mike." And I don't know exactly what's going to come from that conversation when the two of them have it. But what I do know is I'm going to put 100% effort into setting that conversation up and connecting those two people in a way that lets them both know how valuable the other person is, and just opening the door for them to have a conversation so they can co-create and collaborate together. And I'll tell you what, I get goosebumps thinking about that. And could revenue come from that? You doggone right, it could, in a big way. But what gets me jazzed is thinking about the impact that's going to come from that. And when you're connecting the right kind of people like that, yes, they both have already established businesses and all that, but both of these people also have just really huge hearts for service. They want to use their business, like I said before, to make their biggest impact. And so it's they come from a collaborative place already, and being open to having that kind of a conversation. And so, to be able to get to hold my role in this and bringing entrepreneurs like that together and opening the door for them to have that conversation, man, I can't imagine anything more rewarding than that. And I love doing what I get to do every day.
You're so much like me. And what I say to people, you said it could turn a revenue. But if it doesn't, people out there, the universe pays you back.
Yeah.
Doors will open somewhere else. You have to have that mindset to believe that. Well, you'll never do this. Me and you both have that. But that's why we do it. We got to have an ROI. We're not saying, and I don't care if you're not saying, go out and connect people and never make any money. Well, you'd be broke.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be the foremost of your mindset is I got to make money in every partnership, right?
Yeah. Well, and here, my goal is every time I make an introduction like that, my goal is really, really simple. Is I want, will doing this further the relationship that I have with these people and stuff? Regardless of what happens, will they both come back to me going, wow, Kev, thanks so much for introducing me to so and so? And that's always my benchmark, is will it increase the value of the relationship I already have with this person?
And I say this too, I'm going to add, and I think you'll agree, is once you put them together and they meet, you've increased their value, whatever way it looks like.
Totally.
But it's also an introduction. If it doesn't work out, we're not tied to that.
That's
People
right.
come to me, aren't you afraid? I just did 9 referrals this morning. Aren't you afraid of what? I introduce 2 people together, and you do the same thing. And if something transpires, fantastic. If it doesn't, 2 good people just met.
Yeah.
Talk about that mindset. That's important.
Yeah. Well, and I can just go into it like, every introduction that I make is valuable. And because I just set the intention. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't feel that way. And and beyond, like I said, I'm definitely not coin operated when it comes to this. I don't look at like, I'm going to get compensated financially for doing this. And don't get me wrong, because and you've alluded to this, revenue is very important. Revenue allows us to grow our businesses. It allows us to make an impact. It allows us to invest in resources. It's all very important and stuff. But if that's your inspiration, I'm going to just suggest that, maybe have a closer look at that, because I will tell you, whatever amount of revenue you might want to make, you're going to get to a point where, then making more revenue, that ceases to engage us, and for me, like I've said, what inspires me is making a big impact. And not by working harder, not by, because I'll tell you, I'm also I'm a family guy. I'm a husband. I am a father to 7 children. We currently have 6 grandchildren as well, and we'll have another grandchild joining us in a few months here. And I love being a husband and a father and a grandpa too, and I love that as much as being an entrepreneur. And so I'm really intentional about how my business fits in with my life. And I want to make a big impact, but I can assure you that right now, making more revenue is not what inspires me, because my family's needs are met, and we live in a home that we've been in this home for 17 years. We love this home and stuff. We're driving the vehicles we want to drive. We got food on the table. And so making more money is not going to change much. We're going to give to charities. We have a family foundation that we run. We do stuff like that. But what making more does, it allows us to give more. It allows us to sow into others and make a bigger impact. And it's the impact that is what jazzes me, and doing it with people. I mean, you know what? I'm just doing cool stuff with people I love hanging out with that I consider friends and stuff. That's what I'm doing is I'm just hanging out with friends, doing really cool stuff. And that is incredibly inspiring. These people inspire me.
Well, you just inspire me, and I get inspired by a lot of things, but that was so well said because that's really what it is. I get to hang with people I love to hang out. And by the way, money comes in. By the way, it's not the forefront of my mindset. It's got to come somewhere. And I've got to say this: you broke the Guinness Book of World Records. You got to be the youngest grandfather in the world at 40. Holy mackerel!
Right.
7 kids, 7 guys. You heard it here. We're gonna give him the Guinness Book of World Records. Fantastic. So, regards to this entrepreneur stuff, can be hard, can be easy. It's always a work in progress.
Totally. Yeah.
But we got to meet people. What's some tips you could give entrepreneurs and founders of companies to meet more people to grow their business?
Well, okay. So doing the active appreciation thing that I talked about earlier is such a great way to get conversations started. And you just start showing up that way, you'll get people engaging with you. You will absolutely get people engaging with you. So once we've got people engaging with us, a lot of people do like, oh, great. What do I say? What do I tell them? What do I talk about? And the beautiful thing is we don't have to talk about anything. What I love doing is just, I love talking with entrepreneurs. I love finding out what they're working on. I love finding out what's got them jazzed. I love hearing about what challenges and problems they're dealing with too and stuff. And the way I find out all this stuff is just by asking questions. And so, a great question that I love asking of entrepreneurs is, what are you working on right now that you are most jazzed, most excited about? And I'm going to tell you what, you ask them that question and they are going to start talking, and they're going to get very animated talking about what they're working on and what they're most excited about, And here's the deal, our job then is to just listen to them and not listen from the standpoint of, I'm just waiting for my turn to talk so that I can tell them about what I do. That's not what we're doing. And I'll tell you, honestly, it puts a lot of weight on our shoulders when we're trying to have a conversation like that. And we're like, man, I got to figure out how I can talk about my thing. And you know what? We can just chill a little bit. And here's the thing, we're going to just focus on them. We're going to ask questions of them. And when they start sharing, we're going to intently listen, and then we're going to ask more questions based on what they just shared with us. And so they start talking about this thing that they're really jazzed about. Well, wow, that is way cool. What is your vision for that? Where do you see this going? And maybe I might ask, what do you believe is the biggest obstacle or the biggest challenge that might stop you from getting where you want to go with this, And now they'll start telling us about that, And see, here's the thing. When we start having these kinds of conversations, what happens is we end up giving people this really amazing gift that so few people ever get to receive, which is the gift of feeling seen, heard, and understood. And, when people feel that's that feeling that we give them by just being present with them and listening to them, not with the intention of talking about us, but just with the intention of listening and being present for them. When we give them that gift, I will tell you what, they want to spend more time with us. And before you know it, they're going to be like, man, you know what, Steve, enough about me already. Man, I want to find out about you. I want to find out about what you do, Yeah. And it'll just happen organically.
You're speaking my language. This is exactly what I do. And what I love about that too is repeating it back. So, Joe, you just told me your challenge is you need more people.
Yeah.
Here's a resource. Here's a way I can help. You can't help if you don't know. But
Yes.
here's the other thing. And I love what you're saying, Kevin. We're so connected that when you listen to somebody and you go, Kevin, I just heard you say that your family's so important to you. That's such a lovely thing. I didn't give them an answer, but I told them I heard them. And rockets, fireworks go off. They're like, this guy really cares. This woman really cares. And isn't it easy to do, but hard because of the mindset?
Oh yeah, totally. Because we've been conditioned to think that we've got to talk about us, or when we're in a networking environment. I was just in Toronto for the last few days and stuff, and my buddy Gio had hosted this event, and it was a multi-day event, and on the like the first day was for like the VIPs, and there was like, I don't know, maybe 250 people there for that. And then there was a big day where he held it in a convention center, and there was 2,000 people there for that day, for that whole experience that day. And a lot of times entrepreneurs find them in either one of those environments. And like, well, this day there's 250 people here and it's going to last for today. And then tomorrow, man, there's going to be 2,000 people here and it too is going to last for one day. And whichever environment they're in, their thought process many times is like, well, I got to connect with as many people as I possibly can and make hay while the sun is shining. And I had somebody prior to me going there that they were going to that event too. And I was going to be meeting them there. And I knew I'd get to see him, and we were making plans. Hey, let's get together for a meal and all that. And he asked me, he's like, Kevin, he's like, what's your goal for the event? And I said, well, it's a 2-day event. I said, you know what? I said, so what I would like to do is have somewhere between 6 to 8 meaningful conversations with other like-minded entrepreneurs there where we make a real connection with each other. And that is for that right there being a goal for that event. That's like on my end, that's like so easy because that's a lunch conversation. That's a 15-minute conversation at a break, or what have you, that just makes enough of a connection that it lets both of us know that we either want to have more of a conversation or we don't. And either way is totally cool. And it's not about connecting with as many people as we possibly can, because you get home and whatever method you use to do that, whether you're collecting business cards, whether you throw them, if you're trying to collect business cards, you go through that process and you get home and how many ever business cards you got, you start looking through them and you don't know who anybody was. But you focus on making 6 to 8 meaningful connections over a 2-day period. You remember who those people were that you connected with because you had a conversation, you had a dialogue back and forth, you made a connection, and if it feels right, you're gonna follow up and you're gonna have more conversation. You're gonna get to know each other more.
Yeah, it's this audience. This is the blueprint, the playbook, whatever words you want to use to grow your business.
Yeah.
It starts here, and then everything else you can learn from Kevin, because he'll help you with everything else. But this is where you start. And if you're struggling right now, just go meet people, like he's saying. And that question, I'm going to bring, what are you most jazzed about in your business? I'm going to borrow that. I've got great questions. She's like, what are your challenges? I'm going to borrow that. You just say that, you'll have a 20, 30-minute conversation.
Easily.
No problem. Yeah.
Easily.
We're coming to the end here, so I'm very fired up. Can you tell I'm fired up? This is just so much because it's worked for me. I'm going to make millions because of this. But I want to talk about, you stole the title because I wanted a podcast, $1 Million Relationships. Wonderful. Talk about the podcast, what it's about.
Yeah. So we launched the podcast three years ago. We've reached a little over 300 and some episodes now and stuff. And the goal for the podcast is really simple. I want to give the person I'm interviewing, the guest, the opportunity to honor a relationship or more than one relationship that has been incredibly valuable in their life and in their business. And for our listeners, who they too are entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs, I want to use these stories and experiences to just inspire them to place an intentional focus on creating more real, meaningful, rewarding, and profitable relationships in their own lives. And I will tell you that hosting this podcast has been hands down the most rewarding and impactful thing I have done in my 30 years as an entrepreneur. Uh, it was my buddy Brad Costanzo at lunch one day, a little over 3 years ago, we started having this conversation, and he was like, Kev, you should seriously consider hosting a podcast. Here's why. And it just told, as soon as he said it, as soon as we had that conversation, especially coming from him, knowing that he'd already been hosting a podcast for like 8 years at that point. And I was just so jazzed about it, and so jazzed about the idea of having conversations with entrepreneurs about their most valuable relationships, and that was our focus. And that's why it's never seemed like a job hosting the podcast. So many amazing things have come from it. I mean, I now get connected with such amazing entrepreneurs because of the podcast, and it's helped me really expand my own network. It's allowed me to become even a more powerful conduit of trust for entrepreneurs because of the podcast. I mean, so many things have come because of the podcast, and I can only imagine what's going to transpire over the next 300 episodes.
Yeah. And how many total episodes do you have?
Like probably like around 320 we've got released so
A
far.
lot of good people. And I have to ditto it since I launched a podcast, life changing.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, and I talked to a late guest this morning, well, I'm holding off. I said, no, first thing you should do if you want to grow your business, start a podcast. I know everybody needs it. I used to say that. I can't say that. So I'm not in people's shoes, but they're not hard. Anybody can do it. Just ask a question, shut up. Basically.
Yeah.
God, you're an absolute blessing, Kevin. I call you a friend, and I really appreciate that, and appreciate you taking the time to be on here and motivating, inspiring educating my audience. You've been a blessing. Let me ask you a question. Speaking of building relationships, to learn more about Kevin. So I reserved a table at a restaurant for you. Who would you invite? So you got 3 empty chairs. Who would you invite, whether dead or alive, that you want to sit and talk to and build more relationship with and learn from? But also, what food would you order as well?
Well, so one of the people that I would invite would be my father. My father passed away when I was just 16 years old, and he was a big influence on my life in those 16 years. And man, it would be really cool to talk with him again for sure. Man, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Um, um, Bob Berg. What's interesting is Bob Berg. Bob Berg and his partner wrote a book called The Go Giver, like over 10 years ago, and I was first given that book by a friend uh, of mine, and about 10 years ago. And I have read that book probably every. It's a quick, easy read. It's a parable, and it's just packed with so many amazing lessons. And I read it about every year. And what's interesting is I pick up new things every single time I read that book. And I had the opportunity to interview Bob Berg for the podcast and stuff, which was way cool. And man, that guy's such a giver. I would love to just have a conversation and a deeper conversation with him too, and candidly, there's a lot of people that I have interviewed for the podcast that I would just like to get to know on a so much deeper level.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of somebody like Shelley Berkowitz, who I interviewed a couple months ago, and man, she is such a sweetheart, and she built her company to 750 million before selling it a couple of years ago. And she is all heart, and she talked about. She goes, during the podcast, she goes, Kevin, she goes, you know what? She goes, I knew how to get that company to 300 million. But she goes, the other 450 million, she goes, I didn't have that part figured out. And it was, she told me about the gal's name who helped that. And she goes, she is totally responsible for that extra 450 million. I'm just like, wow, that's a heck of a valuable relationship right there.
Talk about high value. Holy moly.
Yeah. And so, I am incredibly blessed in that I get to have these kinds of conversations regularly. And you know, man, I would love to have just a lot deeper conversation. I mean, dinner conversation for, yeah. I mean, I was at dinner having a conversation with a guy when I was in Toronto, my first night there. We were there for 3 hours. We closed that restaurant down at 11 o'clock at night. They were cleaning up, and we were finally like, you know, we probably ought to get out of here. And I could have kept talking. We could have both kept talking, you know,
Yeah,
because it was
beautiful.
that valuable.
It's very cool. What
As
are we
far as
eating at
what
the
I
table?
would order, I like a lot of different food, but man, I really love Mexican food, you know, so I'm always down for Mexican food.
Beautiful. I might have to bring a chair too. That sounds good. Sounds really good. Thank God I just had lunch. I'd be hungry again. Thanks again. I know people listening want to learn more, get to know you more, reach out. How can they find you?
Yeah. So what I would suggest, check out Million Dollar Relationships podcast. And you can find it on Apple, on Spotify, what have you. And if what you see there resonates with you, and if what we've been talking about here today, Steve, if that resonates with you, and you're the kind of entrepreneur who is just a giver through and through, who you know, you want to make your biggest impact through your business, and you too place a high value on relationships, I would absolutely love to hear from you. And I would totally make time so that we could get to know each other a little bit. And if it made sense, I mean, I'd love to do an interview with you for the podcast and stuff. And I'm really easy to get a hold of. I'm Kevin the Connector on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, Kevin Thompson on LinkedIn and stuff. You'll find me there. And my website is maximum-response.com. Candidly, I mean, man, that website can use some updating. I don't hardly ever even give it out, you know.
Yeah, it is what it is. Yeah.
But it is what it is, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, we have to have it. So we have it, but it's not
Yeah.
our priority. I'm with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
But
So,
Kevin, thanks again, man. God bless what you're doing. And audience, reach out to them. Go to that podcast. And here's why. Subscribe to my podcast. Subscribe to Kevin's podcast. Yeah, we love our subscribers, but here's the reason why. His and my podcast are gifts. This show is a gift. And you listen to somebody who's like, I'm struggling connecting. I guarantee you, they listen to 10 minutes of Kevin, you've gifted them with impact. And they reach out to Kevin, listen to his podcast, and they start connecting. You just help them. What did we talk about at the beginning, me and Kevin? Impact. I think podcasts can make a huge impact on the people. We just need to share them. So go ahead and subscribe. And with that being said, me and I almost called you Max. I'm so excited about Kevin. Me and Kevin want to thank all of you for watching or listening to this podcast. And we'll see you all in the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Have a great day, everyone.
bye, everybody.